Mike Braun says he supports transparency because Americans deserve as much openness as possible regarding this important report. His words there. Democratic Congressman Andre Carson agrees, saying whether its findings are significant or not, every single American has an interest in its findings. We must be aiming for the greatest possible degree of public disclosure. You can read those full statements from both lawmakers at wishtv.com. But this morning, I'm joined by our team of political analysts. Abdul Hakim Shabazz is with IndyPolitics.org, also a conservative commentator for WIBC. Laura Beck worked with Democratic Indy Mayor Bart Peterson and former Indiana First Lady Maggie Kiernan. Guys, thanks for coming in.
Hey, I was going to be here on Saturday.
It is Saturday morning. They're going to highlight that.
Nice way to start the morning.
We do have more questions than answers with this report, though. First off, I want to get your opinion. It came at the end of the day, at the end of the work week in Washington. Were you surprised by that at all?
The old Friday news dump?
Right.
When you go to, as our good friend Laura.
March Madness.
Yeah, March Madness.
March Madness.
Friday news dump. No, that really doesn't surprise me at all. It'll be all the talk of all the talking head shows on Sunday morning, obviously. The big question now is, what will be made public, what won't be made public. I was doing some reading this morning during the old Ken Starr report 20-something years ago. I mean, they had trucks and TV cameras.
Like the O.J. chase.
Yeah, coming at him,
the O.J. Simpson chase. I think with this one right here, well, the reaction is going to be a lot of it where you sit depends on where you stand. If you're a Trump supporter, we told you this was a witch hunt. If you're not a Trump fan, we told you that there were shenanigans. Look at the 37 people indicted, 7 of them gone to jail, because you don't go to jail for nothing. So.
Right. I wasn't necessarily surprised, not to interrupt you, by the timing of it, simply because I had the opportunity to consult with a prosecutor on a consulting basis, and they march to their own timeline. They are not concerned about maximizing for news, essentially, because that's really where their focus is, so it didn't surprise me as much on the timing on it.
So what happens if this does not go public, and if it's not released? I mean, we already know there's no indictments coming in with this new final report. But what's the effect then if they say that's it, we're keeping it completely confidential?
Then that is a major mistake, because then that now becomes the story.
Yeah,
it's what's in there. Yeah, what's in there that you don't want the public to know. The president has already talked about release the report. You saw Mike Braun release the report. Let's be open and transparent. And I want to say, Laura, correct me if I'm wrong, the House of Representatives voted unanimously to make the Mueller report
The other
public.
part about what Senator Braun's statement was, and I noticed that they're very careful with their words, as much openness as possible, essentially. So you're hedging your bets a little bit to close the door to keeping it open. I agree with Abdul. If you don't release the report in its entirety, you will essentially feed into the narrative that there was collusion or there wasn't collusion. And it makes the divide in the country even worse. The other piece, too, I think we also have to remember is this is going to go before members of Congress, and they are traditionally known as some of the worst leakers
in the entire world.
So, I mean, do you want to control it, or do you want to have confidential sources, as you said, put that out?
Because think about it. 5 minutes after this thing was released, they said it's going to be out. We knew 5 minutes later that he was not recommending any indictment.
Sure, which would have been one of the biggest headlines that they might have been trying to conceal.
Right, and you can't also discount, though, what also is happening on parallel tracks with the Southern District of New York. And so I think we're going to see more indictments coming out of there as it relates to the inaugural, as it relates to some of the spinoffs from Rick Gates and some of the spinoffs from Michael Cohen.
And I think the other thing on through is really important to remember. What got most of these folks in trouble in the first place was not so much the allegations of Russian collusion, it were the things they lied and misled the FBI and
lying
Justice
under
Department
oath. Well, because we had George Papadopoulos, Paul Manafort, Roger Stone, Michael Flynn, Michael Cohen, with no indictments. And this next one, is that a win for the president then, that there's no specific indictment coming out of this report?
It is in the sense that none of your friends are going to jail for this, but a lot of your friends may be going to jail for other stuff. So I guess you can do a little victory lap and say, "Yay, we won!" But that's like being valedictorian in summer school. I mean, at the end of the day,
it's like your Abdul's public service announcement this morning. Don't lie, because you're going to get caught when you do it.
That's the big statement then.
It is, yeah. What is totally fascinating about this report to me is, especially as we're looking at it from those spinoffs, what other possible investigations are going to come from this? Because in order to cut a deal with the government, you have to give them information. They're just not going to say, oh, your sentencing's reduced. You've got to really give them something concrete to work from. So we'll see where that leads, but it's not surprising if there's more coming out.
And just go back real quickly to the Clinton impeachment times. That all started with Whitewater, which was a land deal in Arkansas that later turned into Paula Jones and later turned into Monica Lewinsky.
Yeah. Either way, it is very perilous for President Trump as he's moving into his reelection, but it's also perilous too, as a Democrat, I think I can say this. It's also perilous to Democrats because if they overreach, as the Republicans did in 1994, that has the potential to really rally President Trump's supporters even more. And it also has the potential to make it a little more difficult on those candidates who are running.
It is a divisive issue. It's made Washington a little stickier than maybe it's been in the past. So thank you for that input. Then we can't just say, okay, the report's done. There's a lot more still to come.
Oh, no, now
this.
the fun now begins.
Right, yeah, absolutely.
There we go. All right, thank you so much for
Thanks
coming
for
in.
having us.
We so
Thank you.
appreciate it.